Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Around the Ballpark podcast. Today, as you know, is September 15th, just after 8 p.m., and we are live on YouTube. Thanks, a few of you already in the chat. Thank you so much for the support. Just an awesome channel growth that we've had here, and we'll get into that. But without further ado, just want to welcome along, as always, Jake Redmond, our producer, and Darren Redmond, our co-host here on the channel. And tonight, we are going to talk the Los Angeles Rams. It's NFL, it's football season, baby, and we're going to get into the good stuff. So, Delaun, super excited to have you on here. And before we kind of dive into all the good stuff, Darren, if you'll read a word from our sponsor, the good folks at Nashville Tax Solutions.
Nashville Tax Solutions has got you covered for any and all of your tax concerns, your tax questions, your tax anxiety. Whether you're behind on your return, whether you're facing a lien, or just need expert advice, their team is ready to help. Here's what some of the clients have said. Chris Bennett and his team have saved me from a financial nightmare. They're knowledgeable, they're clear, they're compassionate, and most of all, they listen. So don't let taxes stress you out. Reach out to Nashville Tax Solutions today. Call 615-502-2250 and visit NashvilleTaxSolutions.com. Remember this. Yeah, everybody knows about tax season, but there are so many. And, Mike and I, just last week, we went live a couple of days ago on this broadcast. And we talked to somebody who was a 1099. So constantly you have to make sure that your taxes are in order. So even if you have just questions, email info@NashvilleTaxSolutions.com. Nashville Tax Solutions, where tax resolution is achieved.
Thank you, Darren. And again, Chris Bennett, great friend of the channel, not just supporting us, but just has been a guest on our show a couple of times now. Big NFL fan, attended the home opener for the Tampa Bay Bucks last Sunday. So just shout out again to the great thing and great work that they do. With that said, thanks everyone in the chat. I see Eileen in there, of course, and Mike Clark and some others. So thank you guys for joining us. And the guest of honor tonight, we have Delaun with us. We are going to talk the Los Angeles Rams. We're going to talk NFL football. And let's just get into it. Delaun, hello. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a tremendous honor to be here and to represent a team that's on the other side of the basically the continent.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And, so much good stuff to talk about. We're only 2 games in, but and as we start getting into it, everybody that's there, if you have any questions, comments, just continue to post that in the chat. We are so close, ladies and gentlemen, to 1,000 subs. We are at 983 subs as of right now. That is awesome. Considering 2 months ago, we were just at 250 subscribers. That's huge amazing growth in just a short amount of time. That's a testament to all of you. So with that said, Delaun, just as we get started here, first thing I want to dive into, let's go ahead and jump, let's go rewind a little bit to last week. Week 1 NFL season against the Detroit Lions. Great game, obviously. Just want to get your initial thoughts on that experience, that game, because you watched that entirety of that game. Just kind of dive into that a little bit.
Sure. One of the complaints I've had about Sean McVay, although we're going to talk a lot about him and I've got info here, the seasons tend to start slow for him, but this was against an opponent you can't get away from that. Or get away with that. So I was very happy to see, the Rams were down, but 17-3, but came back to take the lead 20-17 and played a team that is, supposedly a Super Bowl caliber team into an overtime. Was not happy to see them lose, obviously, in sudden death like that. But you're talking about the second youngest team in the NFL who was playing against Detroit, and of course an inexperienced defense with some Florida FSU players, which is kind of cool to have them on our team as well. So it was a sad loss, but I was encouraged, that we played them into overtime. So it could have gone either way, especially after being down 17-3 going into the third quarter.
Yes. And, unfortunately things didn't turn out in, week 1. So they were going into today, sitting there at 0-1 in a difficult division, but the season is still so young. So that, of course, takes us to today, week 2, against the Arizona Cardinals. And Obviously, did not go the way that we had both thought it might go.
Not so pretty a game, but the Rams succumbed to what should have beat them last week. I mean, the Rams are the second youngest team in the NFL, but they are the most injured. I mean, if you look at the last 2 weeks, the Rams have lost Puka Nacua. All right, we had lost Alric Jackson to suspension. We had lost Rob Heavenstein, the right tackle, Kevin Dotson, the right guard, Steve Avila, the starting center. They lost this week Cooper Kupp, and then Johnny Johnson III. I mean, I've heard that the Rams have also lost 3 cheerleaders and one of their ball boys. So we're talking about a very injured team right now.
Yes, very much so. And I know, Darren, I know you have a couple questions, so I'll let you dive in, but just a couple more shout outs. AKG Nero, thank you for joining the podcast. Flyers Forever, always joining us, which love to have you on. So thank you both for joining us. And as always, just any comments, questions you have, just throw them in the chat. But Darren, go ahead with, I'm sure you have a couple questions you want to get started with.
Well, many people know this, that I lived for the past 16 years in Central California. So,
wow.
My daughter has been in that stadium quite a bit. LA's a funny place. I want to start there. It's a funny place because people have a tough time trying to figure out, is it a college town? Is it a a pro town? And the answer is yes to all.
Right.
The Rams, a couple of years ago, won the Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford. And people just got on them for, Stafford, why are you getting him? He won your Super Bowl. He, again, I think looks pretty good this year. More than okay.
Oh, yeah.
They're
still, despite everything, he's sharp.
100%. 100%. They're a team in flux right now. I think they're a team that, much like a couple of teams out there, like Denver did when they had Peyton, when they won Super Bowls, that need to go to run, throw short passes, not because he can't throw deep, but that's who they are, and then do some things on defense. So they're just in flux right now. They're going to start slow. They'll be there in the end. They'll be spoken. Yeah. They'll be okay.
Well, one of the things I noticed as I was, reviewing the NFL today is there is a ton of parity. I mean, there's a lot of 1-1 teams out there. It's not like we're going into week 3 and there's a bunch of 0-2 teams. There aren't. But, not that I'm proud to say that my team is matching a potential AFC champion from last year, the Baltimore Ravens at 0-2. But, seeing the kind of parity, and I want to shout out to the Vikings for beating the 49ers today. I appreciate that.
Yep.
But, knowing that I'm rooting for the second youngest team in the NFL, I mean, first of all, we've got an amazing coach in Sean McVay. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But also, I mean, I was reviewing the last 2 years worth of drafts. I mean, the 2023 draft, we got how many starters? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. Right guard Steve Avila. We've got Edge, Byron Young. We've got Kobe Turner. This is in 2023. He had 9 sacks as a rookie. And, of course, we had Puka Nacua, who had a NFL record-setting season. And, unfortunately, that was helped a little bit by Cooper Kupp being injured. So, and then we've got a couple of other people that are intriguing from that draft, from the 23 draft, which is running back, Evans, and tight end Davis Allen, who was very, very good as well, a receiving tight end. Then you look at last year's draft, the 2024, actually this year's draft, 2024 draft, you're talking about Jared Verse from the Florida State Seminoles and their amazing defense. And then they drafted his teammate in Brandon Fisk, so, as a defensive tackle. So I'm very excited to that combination. That combination has started to come around. In the injuries, we had Bo Limmer, who looked incredible as a center during the preseason, started today, did very well as running back Blake Coral, who could score from anywhere. Wasn't used in the first week. I was kind of disappointed about that, but, to see him get a little bit of playing time this year today, but I'm certain he's going to get a tremendous amount more playing time as the year progresses.
Let me stop you there just to kind of put a little nuance into what you just said. They are riddled with injuries right now, and they're a young roster. And I don't mean this like, tough person or football, but for example, with the Jets today, they had a couple of injuries. Mm-hmm. Who cares? Nobody cares. Meaning, the NFL doesn't care that you're going in there injured. And McVay knows this. He says, I'm going to put the best team I can out there to win. We as fans, we as people who cover teams, we have that nuance and that ability to say, wow, they got a lot of injuries. Nobody cares that the Jets might have lost their their outside edge rusher to an Achilles today. Nobody cares.
Yep. Or last year when they lost
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron, Aaron Rodgers being lost for a season. No one cared at that point. But look at what Sam Darnold
oh my God, 97
did for the Vikings today. So you go, oh my gosh. And one more person I neglected to mention that we got in the 2023 draft was Kyron Williams, who led was second in the NFL in yardage last year, even though he missed 5 games to injury. So, I'm looking at all these players and I'm very excited about their trajectory. And another thing I say about this season, there are still 15 more games.
Yep.
So this season, 0-2 does not mean, oh my gosh, the season is lost. Oh, we're going to use this year to rebuild. No way. This team is much too talented. Too talented.
Just want to say the season is officially over for the Carolina Panthers. Thank you guys so much for scoring 3 points. It was amazing. I think that's as much as we're going to get in a season. So shout out to them. That's awesome. But a few more people dropped in. Just want to say hello as we continue on.
I'm sorry, Mark. That was perfect timing.
That's hilarious.
Yes.
Hey, look, I remember when it was like that for the Rams, when the Rams were hapless. I think they were the second losingest team during the 90s. It was depressing. And then we fell back into that after the retirement of, I have his name right here, after the retirement of Dick Vermeil. A year or two later, they were a playoff team for a couple of years, and then boom, right back down in the malaise until we got Sean McVay. So I feel your pain, Mike. I really do.
Yes, we don't celebrate wins, we celebrate first downs. So as we continue on, I just want to shout out to Brian Anderson for jumping on. He's been on the show quite a few times. And makes a comment. I know this is Rams week, but the Commanders, how about that? Just a sidebar. They fired their kicker just last week, and the new kicker goes 7 for 7, wins the game with 21 points off field goals. That's awesome.
At least they had a kicker. Who was it that didn't have a kicker this week? Was it the Giants who lost their kicker in the same game?
Oh, wow. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
They lost their kicker. They didn't have a kicker and couldn't just, in a field goal laden game, they couldn't keep up.
Yeah,
all their points were touchdowns.
Yeah, and so I'm sure we'll have Brian on, big Commander fan. And a shout out to Mark Laraquente. Says, what's up, guys? Thanks for joining us. Robert Shoemaker is here. We're going to have him on in a couple weeks to talk Cincinnati Bengals football. So thank all of y'all for
they had a killer loss. They had a
what
killer
a loss.
It looked like at the end they were going to win, and then wow.
Yep. So
I enjoyed that game also. I kept an eye on it while I was watching the Rams. I am from Cincinnati. That's where I was born.
I got to stop you there.
Sure.
Stop you there. Okay. You know what I'm going to ask about, Mike, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to ask. Okay. So it's usually talked about with baseball. Overrated, underrated, just right. I think it's. I really enjoy it. Skyline chili.
Skyline chili.
Yep.
I'm going to have to say none of the above because I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, my God. No.
Sorry, not familiar with Skyline chili.
That's all right.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, it's a staple for some. Those that haven't got that experience, it's okay. But before we dive into some other good stuff,
it's really good.
We have to, and Eileen made reference to it earlier in the chat. We have to talk about what's in front of you right now, because talk about coming to a podcast prepared, A+ all the way around.
Thank you.
Robert Shoemaker, Skyline chili is amazing. Yes,
it is. So, he's a smart man right there. He wins a no prize. If those of you who read Marvel comic books, you know what a no prize is. He wins a no prize.
But real quick before we ask that question, Delaun, because a couple of questions came in just before we jump. Darren, if you could explain for those asking, what is Skyline chili?
Skyline chili is I'm sorry. I just got to bring it up. I'm sorry. It is. I can't explain it. It's supposedly chili, but it is chili. But it's on like this little hot dog. I forget what they call it, or they put it on spaghetti, and it's absolutely delicious. It's delicious. People say the secret ingredient is chocolate. People say it's other things. It's really good.
Now
That's
I
all I'm
gotta
saying.
try it.
I'm telling you,
Chocolate
would,
chili. Oh yeah.
you would love it.
Can you get it on
yeah.
Amazon? That's all we need to know.
I
But go ahead, Delaun. Go ahead and share all the goodness that is in front of you.
Yes,
because there's a
I
lot.
love it.
So here, I've got a story on all of these, which is really, really interesting. I bought this helmet. This is a St. Louis Rams helmet. And I happen to be on an insurance trip and I should have introduced myself what I do professionally. I am an entrepreneur here in Brevard County. I own a health insurance agency. I do Medicare and Obamacare. I'm also involved in safe liquid hydrogen and the investments on that. And I'm just getting into 2 new weight loss centers we're going to be opening up in Brevard County as well. So I'm really excited about that. Be that as it may. So I was on an insurance trip to Green Bay, Wisconsin. And if you've never been to that stadium, I don't care. First of all, it's hallowed ground. Come on. You know, it's frozen tundra. It is hallowed ground. Their pro shop is the most amazing pro shop I've ever been to. The first floor, obviously, is all Green Bay Packers. The second floor, and we're talking about a place that's like half the size of a super Walmart. It's just amazing. But the second floor celebrates all things NFL. So while I was there, of course, I picked up this helmet, which was really cool, the mini helmets. The next, well, everybody, I'm going to go from the outside in. The other helmet I picked up right after the Rams moved to LA from St. Louis. This helmet right here, I picked up way back in 1999, this one right here. When the Rams won the Super Bowl, this was the helmet that they were wearing in Super Bowl 34. And of course, I wanted this helmet anyway after they changed to this, their newest design. But this I got right around the same time as Super Bowl 56. They actually had Rams merchandise here in the Central Florida area, and I snatched it up there. This right here was a gift from my mom. This is a stuffed ram, Los Angeles Ram, that I got also back when the Rams won the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 34. All right. This is the movie 13. Which I highly, highly recommend. I don't care what team you're a fan of. This is an incredible family movie. It's a great movie. And of course, it features Kurt Warner and the year that he won the Super Bowl. And then, of course, this is a Blu-ray of the Rams win in Super Bowl 56. So that lets you know everything. Now, are you asking me to talk about these right here?
Yes.
Okay, these 2 things. So, the rings on my left hand, or the ring on my left hand, is the Rams Super Bowl ring from Super Bowl 34 when they first won it. And the ring on my right hand is from Super Bowl 56, their latest win as well. So I feel blessed to root for a team that's won 2 Super Bowls. And a long time ago, I told my wife, these teams should make it where there are fan rings also. So that when your team wins, you get to have a Super Bowl ring as well. Now, are these the official rings? Of course not. But, they are beautiful. I'm very proud that my team has them because there are several teams in the NFL who don't have these too. Now, do I want another ring for here or for here? Of course I do. I'd love to be like the Steelers fans or the Giants fans who have a ton of rings as well.
Yep. And great stuff. And just a couple quick shout outs. Jake's obviously with us, but in the chat and talking about how the Skyline chili is overrated, and he can confirm nothing's better than some mystery meat and imitation spaghetti. But we love you, Jake. His name is Jake, I think. Yeah. We do have a question
Who
for
raised
you.
him? He's got a bad dad.
We do have a question for you, Delaun, from Robert.
Yes.
Who had the most impressive, surprising performance this week? Or this season, I should say, from the Rams. I know today they only scored 10 points, but who would you put? Yeah.
Geez Louise. It's really tough. It's easier to say who's had a more disappointing season, but to see wide receiver Josh Taylor, has been incredible for the Rams this year so far. Has come in, especially in relief of Puka Nacua, did very, very well. and was very convincing over the last 2 weeks. He's come in and filled the hole. So I'm not as concerned for the Rams wide receiver room because we have him. And so I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And no, great question. Shout out. We also have joining us, Joel Quintero is with us in the chat as well. Emmeline, Rosado, House family. It's so good to see you guys in here. Super excited. She says, "Let's go Steelers." And Joe Alessandro says Eli beat Favre and Rodgers in the playoffs at Lambeau, 2 of the 5 playoff games they have ever lost there. So
hallowed ground.
Yeah. Hallowed ground. Yeah. I would love to know. I mean, in Green Bay on a Sunday, like what is open? Like is Dollar General open in Green Bay?
Believe it or not, one of the unique things about the Green Bay Packers versus other NFL teams is the team is actually owned by the town. Right. So when you go to Walmart, what's interesting is you'll see behind the cashiers TVs, so that while they're ringing you up, they can watch the games on Sunday. All right. This team is just very unique compared to other NFL teams. When you consider that Green Bay is not a large market, it really isn't. I've been there now. And as someone who lived in South Florida forever before I moved up here, it's Green Bay, Wisconsin is tiny compared to some of the other NFL towns like Los Angeles, like Miami, Jacksonville, Tampa Bay. It's a very small market. But you talk about a market that is so just manic about their team. It's incredible. The players see that. I happen to be there the day during their practice where little kids bring in bicycles, and then the players use the bikes to get from the practice field to the parking lot. So I talked to a few ex-Rams that had been traded in the off season during that. Like I said, on my way to the pro shop when I bought this. So I hope I'm chiming in for Green Bay. Like I said, it's hollow ground.
Yep, and I do promise we are going to talk a little bit more Rams football, but it's NFL season, so you get excited, But just one fact for those that may not be from the area that are watching, which is unique. You talk about hollowed ground. We do have 3 teams here in Florida. However, one of the most popular places here is the Broken Barrel Tavern. And if you go into the Broken Barrel Tavern, you'll notice it's not what you expect as a Florida football fan. You go in and they have a special room for those Pittsburgh Steeler people. Emmeline, appreciate. They have a Steelers room. They have a Buffalo Bills section. And then they pretty much rotate with the Cowboys and the Eagles. Now, not to say there's not Dolphin fans that go and whatnot, but that's unlike any other city anywhere. You're not going to go into a state. You're not going to go to New York and go watch, whatever. But for whatever reason, although there are high number of fans of the Florida teams, most of the bars and most of the places around do have a Steelers following, a Bills following heavy, sometimes even the Patriots following heavy here in Central Florida. So just wanted to point that out.
Giants following as well.
Giants travel real well. You see a lot of
Giants travel well.
Yeah, they definitely do. And what I wanted to ask, and those watching can chime in. So, Delaun, I know personally you have not got to attend a Rams game at their stadium, and I believe you've been to some Rams games here locally. So just kind of share that experience since you haven't got to go to a home Rams game, what those experiences were like, and you got to share the story with the hat as well.
Definitely. Yes. So being a Los Angeles Rams fan or a St. Louis Rams fan, it's kind of hard to get to home games. I'd love to have gotten to the St. Louis Stadium. I heard it was a great stadium for a while. It was state of the art, and then other stadiums caught up. And then when the Rams moved to LA, I mean, first of all, when Dallas built their stadium, I'm like, their stadium cost $1.2 billion. I'd love to see that stadium, see what $1 billion gets you. Well, the Rams have a stadium that is $5 billion. I think it can be seen from the moon. But being that I always have to travel into, shall we say, enemy territory whenever I go to a Rams game, it's a little tough. I've been to Miami, seen the Rams play Miami 3 times down there, 1 preseason game, 2 regular season games. And I've been to Jacksonville and had, first of all, if you've never been to a Jacksonville stadium, it's very interesting. And we'll get to the hat in a moment, Mike. But, who thought it was a good idea to put 2 pools in an end zone? Only the Jacksonville Jaguars have done that. I thought that was crazy. I went up there. I got there early so I could check out the stadium and see that, But walking into the Dolphin Stadium, I've had friends come with me, and I had a buddy, Ray, come with me to Rams Dolphins down there. And of course, when I go to Rams Dolphins, knowing again that I'm in enemy territory, not like walking in like a Jets fan, but, if I'm going to go to a stadium, I'm going to show out. So what I mean by showing out is I wear this. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm walking in to Dolphin Stadium down there wearing this and going through crowds. And of course, the more, the closer I get to the stadium, the more objections I start to get, the louder the crowd gets. And my buddy Ray was starting to get kind of concerned. He's a small town guy, and he's walking into big town Miami. Well, one of the Dolphin parties, tailgate parties that were going on there, decided, they waved me over. At that point, Ray is no longer walking next to me or even really behind me. He's doing the Muslim thing. He's about, 30, 40 feet behind me at that point. And I got grabbed into this particular tailgate party. I was put into the middle of said tailgate party wearing this. I'm glad they didn't pour beer on me or anything, but they got several pictures of me wearing this. And I was able to fight them off, and I got to my seats in the stadium. Of course, I think Ray showed up 10 minutes later. So, but you got to wear something like this.
Yeah.
I wish they'd make a new one with the new colors and the new logo. So,
and most towns and cities, they'll appreciate that. Unless you're going into Philadelphia, they might.
I love that. I love that.
That is awesome.
Isn't that great?
And
where'd you get
this?
that?
Was a gift from my wife, and it does. I can't wear it at the stadiums now because it's St. Louis Rams, not Los Angeles Rams. But I still keep it. So.
Yep.
Anyway.
And, we have 2 questions that came in, so I want to make sure we address those as we continue on here. Again, thanks you guys so much for supporting. Remember the goal, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So while you're watching this, share with some friends, some family. Let's get us to 1,000 before the end of tonight, if possible, or the end of the week.
If you're not subscribed, subscribe, like.
Yes, please subscribe already. Right. What are you doing? Come on.
So,
so 2 questions. I'm going to ask Darren that first one, and then Delaun the second one. So Darren, question came in from one of our favorite watchers and listeners, Flyers Forever. While watching a football game, nachos, pizza, or wings. Also, what's your drink of choice? So already coming in, pizza, Dr. Pepper, the 7-layer dip, wings, pizza, wings, Mountain Dew, Coke Zero. So Darren, your thoughts?
Okay, so if I am at the game, tailgating, totally different. But I'll just tell you what I did today. How about that? So today was some deep fried macaroni and cheese balls. Seriously, right? And a big old hero, not a grinder, all due respect, not a sub, big old hero, and had that, and a little pizza and some wings. Don't judge me. All right?
Yep. And a lot of pizzas coming through the chat too. Definitely pizza. Don't judge you. That sounds awesome. Just interested to see what kind of pizza. Is it the real stuff from or is it the Little Caesars Domino's, or you guys that putting pizza in the chat? The authentic.
So now here's the again with me, right? If I'm with our subscribers, our listeners, I'm with my friends, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because it's about who you're with, and it's about the companionship and just everybody having a good time. Everybody's safe. We're kidding each other. We're just sharing good stories. As long as there's not bugs doing the cha-cha on it, I'm good.
You're good. And in the words of Doug Heffernan, if you're going to have a Super Bowl party or a football party and have people over, you gotta bring out a different chip change every quarter.
100%. 100%.
Chip change. Yes. Don't be putting them all out in the beginning. That's crazy talk.
No.
I'm fortunate to have a beautiful wife who is probably even more into NFL and football than I am. So Because a lot of people, they struggle sometimes. Oh, they want to watch football. They want to do fantasy football. They want to watch more football and college football. And, they're limited. Oh, one game, that's all I get. But I have a beautiful wife that will watch football all day long if the time allots. So just wanted to shout out for that. But the other question, nothing wrong with that.
I was going to ask, as big a fan as she sounds, and I happen to know her, does she play Madden as well or no?
No, we not video games. I think maybe I think we would have fun doing it. We just haven't. I think
definitely.
My Aiden's obviously not into a lot of the sport games, so but I'm sure if it was available, we would definitely we would do that. Emmeline says she likes the chip change idea. And we don't want no double dippers either, at our Super Bowl parties. But the other question that came in, this one is for you, Delaun.
Sure.
And I'm going to find it here because so many things coming in. So, okay. So I guess looking at today's loss, lopsided loss, again, it was just a loss. They're going to be fine. Carolina's not, just reiterating that. So what would you say is the biggest hole in the Rams game plan from these past 2 weeks?
You would say the biggest hole in the Rams game plan? It's McVay's, the Rams, believe it or not, even though they're high-powered, high-scoring type of team, their game is about play action. Play action, play action, play action. When you have starters on your offensive line who are gone, these guys are road graders. And unfortunately, right now, they're not there. Then you can't set up the play action with the run. Like I said, Kyron Williams last year as a rookie was number 2 in the NFL. Why? Because we had a consistent offensive line. The nice thing is I know that next week we will have all but one starter back on our line. So I'm very, very happy about that. So I guess their starting line right now is the biggest hole. And to give you a bonus answer, on defense, you're talking about replacing Aaron Donald, and you've got it's a very, very young defense, and now we've got injuries where our secondary was a strength. Now it's not.
Right. Yeah, no, well said. Well said on that. And so I'm going to take this opportunity. We have a couple other things to talk about, but I'm going to jump in here. Usually we say this for the end, but I want to do this now because we have a lot of people on with us. And so even those that are watching along, even if you are not a Rams fan, but you are an NFL fan, you may know some of these people. So go ahead and chime in your answers in the chat. But Delaun, I'm going to ask you this second. I'm going to ask Darren first. You have a couple extra seconds because you have an awesome answer ready. But Darren, if you could, I would like to touch base on one of the staples of this show. That is the Mount Rushmore. Off the cuff, Darren, your Mount Rushmore of the Rams, and then we're going to get into Delaun because Delaun, as he said, is the most prepared guest we've had on the podcast. So before we get into that, Darren, you're off the cuff.
My off the cuff. Kurt Warner, number 1. All right, and plus, I love the old school. All right, number 4 will blow your mind. Roman Gabriel, number 2. He actually helped make me love. He had a book in about 1973 that I read, and I fell in love with the game. And,
what's the book?
It was just on Roman Gabriel. It was just
a biopic?
I thought it was.
Being a Rams fan, I would want that.
Yeah, look it up. It was just, it had some pictures, and I just fell in love with his name, and I fell in love with him in the uniform, and it was wild. And Deacon Jones,
who just put in the chat as well from Joe Alessandro Deacon Jones. So, yep.
And he created the term quarterback sack.
Sack. Yeah.
And in the last one, I'm going to give you the year, and then you please, a special guest, you tell us. 1979. 1979.
1979. Well, it could be Vince Ferragamo. It could have been.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. He was an amazing quarterback. Short-lived, unfortunately, but an amazing quarterback.
He almost beat the Steelers. Steelers were on their heels.
We were supposed to get smoked, and were it not for the love of a late interception in that game. In fact, if he'd have seen Billy Waddy, who was wide open in the end zone, he took the shot at somebody. I can't remember who he was shooting to, but unfortunately, Lambert intercepted the ball. Yeah, Lambert intercepted it. So were it not for that, the Rams there'd be a third ring here. I mean, we put the Steelers, and this is during the Steel Curtain, and Terry Bradshaw, and John Stallworth and Lynn Swann. I mean, all those guys. The whole Steeler 30% of the Hall of Fame who were on that team, and the Rams played an incredible game.
Joe Youngblood and Jack Youngblood played with a broken leg. That
Don't steal my thunder.
No, I'm sorry.
Don't steal my thunder.
That team, I'm sorry, that team was amazing. And this comes from a guy who was rooting for the Steelers. You knocked Lynn Swann out of the game.
Yep. Knocked him completely out. Yep. Nolan Cromwell, and I'm trying to remember the name of the other safety that was there. They collided and knocked Lynn Swann on his, it was bad. I felt bad for Lynn Swann,
Yep. He was never the same after that, by the way.
He was
never
not,
the same.
No. And I'm not going to share the other names. A lot of other names have come through, but I want the guest of honor here to be able to share his, and then we'll compare it to that. So once again, those of you that are going to be future guests, this is how it's done right here.
Yeah. Oh, look at that.
This is Mount Rushmore. Okay. And we're going to start. You have to start here with Kurt Warner. All right. And I do want to read from my notes. I mean, think about it. Kurt Warner, a year before going to the Super Bowl, he was working a high V, and to win the Super Bowl. I remember Sports Illustrated did an article, and the article was, who is this guy? So to take the Rams to the playoffs and then the Super Bowl in his first season as a starter, after our starter went down in a preseason game, that the whole team was built around him, and they had to come up with Warner. I mean, it was amazing. So you got to put him in the Hall of Fame. He kept the Rams near dynasty level for a long time, and then went back and played for the Cardinals, got the Cardinals in the Super Bowl. So he is definitely here in my Mount Rushmore. Number 2, you got to go with Marshall Faulk.
Oh, Marshall Faulk. Many people forget about him.
Yeah. Marshall Faulk was an incredible running back. He's 5'10", 211 pounds. That is my current build, by the way. During the Super Bowl year, he rushed for 1,381 yards. He received 1,048 yards that year, scored 15 touchdowns during that same year. As a career, 12,000 yards rushing, 7,000 yards receiving, had 136 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. He was a scoring machine. Now, I am wearing a Donald shirt.
Yep.
So you're going to be very surprised at my next answer for my Mount Rushmore, which is Jack Youngblood. And you say, wait a second. You had Aaron Donald, and you're replacing Aaron Donald with Jack Youngblood? Yes, I am. During the Super Bowl year, Jack Youngblood beat Dallas, beat Tampa Bay with a broken fibula.
Yep.
And played with a broken leg. All right. Played in the Super Bowl with a broken leg. Okay. Now, Aaron Donald was a sack machine, but Jack Youngblood had more sacks than he did. In his career, he had 151 and a half sacks, 7 Pro Bowls, and he was the Defensive Player of the Year in 1979. So when you said 79, I was like, all right, I knew that I had him on my Mount Rushmore,
right?
But I said to myself, Vince Ferragamo was really good too, but Ferragamo would never, he's just not in this class of player.
Oh, no, but it's just for my, Rams from a distance,
Oh, yeah. Ferragamo was a great quarterback. I thought, to be honest with you, he was the answer to having a Staubach back then, because Staubach and then Danny White were so dominant. You could tell, guys, I've been a fan for a long time. Now, the next 2 were a little tough. Very, very tough. I couldn't come up with, just a 4th one, so I had to go with 2 more. You got to go with Dick Vermeil. 100%. He took a team in less than 3 years who was a bottom dweller in the NFL. He brought in Marshall Faulk. He brought in Kurt Warner, along with several other players. So you got to put him on the Rams Mount Rushmore as the coach who brought him to that Super Bowl in 3 years. You just have to. The Rams it was tough to be a Rams fan back then. Let's put it to you that way. However, and this is my other Mount Rushmore, my last Mount Rushmore, you have to go with Sean McVay. Sean McVay has, first of all, Dick Vermeil did it in 3 years. Sean took the Rams to the Super Bowl in his second year. So you got to be impressed with that. Sean McVay's coaching ladder is a redwood. I mean, I think, what is it, the third in the NFL are former McVay coaches? I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's amazing. Look at Mike McCarthy. Look at, some of and some of the players who moved on too, from the Rams. Never had the success they had when they were playing for McVay. And he is he's a wonder kid. I mean, you could ask him about a game when he was the tight ends coach with the Washington Redskins, and he could tell you every play that happened in that game. He's a savant. He's amazing. So I've always felt good about Sean McVay. And then, of course, to come to a place where he brought the Rams to that Super Bowl, the one I'm holding in this hand right here. So this is my Rams Mount Rushmore. I don't know if others disagree or agree, but I think, this would be it. It'd be hard. You'd be hard pressed to find anyone else.
I've got one question in there, and again, your list is your list. And Mike, right? I don't know if it's on the chat or not, but you picked, Falk, who's a dynamite, and I have no question, over Dickerson. Why?
Okay, so Dickerson was an incredible player. All right, and he ran like a gazelle, 2,000-yard rusher. I think he still owns the record. However, he didn't lift his team the way Falk did.
I like. That's going next level, folks. That's going past the stats. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. It's about, when you say Mount Rushmore, when you talk about this level of player, Kurt Warner made the Rams better. And not just as a quarterback, he lifted the team. Marshall Faulk was willing to block. He was willing to rush. He was willing to catch. He was a machine. So when you talk about what players should be Mount Rushmore, it's not just about the stats. How did they affect the team? Nothing wrong with Dickerson. I have a Dickerson jersey. Love Dickerson. But, when you talk about it, he was great on the Rams, but he left the Rams for greener pastures elsewhere for money. And that left a little bit of a, distaste in my mouth. Now I know he still considers himself a Ram. If you go to any Los Angeles Rams game, he's on the sideline, especially in Los Angeles. So he's still a holdout, but he did not improve or lift the team the way Falk did. Falk was the coach on the field.
Yeah. I love the analysis. That's why we asked the question. That was beautiful.
Yep. That's always a fun. It's always a fun question. And just a quick shout out, guys. We are up to 990. We went up 10 more subscribers. As you know, with YouTube, sometimes it fluctuates here and there.
10
goes
more
up,
Rams
goes down.
fans. Come on.
So 10 away. That number 10 is significant, by the way. The number 10 is the amount of points the Carolina Panthers will score between weeks 3 and 17. Just throwing that out there. Now, a couple more just names that came in when we're talking about Rushmore. Deacon Jones, Merlin Olsen, Jack Youngblood, Marshall Faulk, Merlin Olsen, Orlando Pace, Rosie Greer, and Lamar
Greer. I mean, you look at that line. However, the only reason why I didn't put them in the Mount Rushmore is now you go a little bit to stats in that those were teams that never made a championship.
No.
These people were all involved in championships as well as lifting the team. So as great as Greer was and Merlin Olsen and especially Deacon Jones, everyone involved in the fearsome foursome, they still, as great a defense as they weren't a defense that won championships.
So my other question is, how did Dieter Brock stay off your list?
Dieter Brock, I wonder why. I know who he is, but
exactly.
The fact that I know who he is just means he doesn't have many more stats than the water boy that got injured in one of the games.
And the water boy is probably more needed than Dieter Brock.
Yes.
And so
very much
number 5.
And this has been a lot of fun. We got about 10 minutes left. So as we start closing this thing down, a couple more things we want to talk about, but dive a little bit more to the Rams in just a moment. Those in the chat, I'm going to ask this to Darren first and then Delaun. Just have a little bit of fun. It is only week 2, so there's no wrong answers here, except unless you pick Carolina. What I'm going to ask you guys here is, as of right now, through week 2, your NFC and AFC championship games, as of right now, what would you say? So, Darren, start with you.
The Saints and the Chiefs.
Saints and the Chiefs would go to, okay.
as champions or as because I thought is who's going to play in the championship games.
Yeah. So who would be
four?
Who would be playing? Yeah, 4. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's going to be. That's a good one. Right now, I would have to say Chiefs and the Bills, Saints and the Eagles.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay.
If my Rams were healthy, I would put the Rams there. I mean, being that they weren't as good a team last year and almost took the Lions, who went to the championship. But you're talking about, an injured Rams team. Let's see how they recover. And definitely for next year, I think the Rams are, the Rams are perennial. But to answer the question right now, based on what I've seen, believe it or not, yes, definitely the Saints. But Minnesota looked so dominant today. Yeah. And I was very, very surprised. So I would think Minnesota and the Saints in this year's championship in the NFC, other than my own Rams. In the AFC, my gosh, Chiefs look like world beaters, but a lot of teams have shown them up also. They won teams by the skin of, I watched them against the Ravens, barely won that game, and then got out against Cincinnati by the skin of their teeth. So as much as I would love to say, yes, Chiefs and someone else, my gosh, it's really hard to pick the AFC because the Chiefs have been exposed. And you would think, then you would go Ravens and Bengals. Well, look at the Ravens are 0-2. Why are they 0-2? And yet they had the MVP. So it's hard to pick the AFC. I think the AFC is wider open than initially thought.
Me too.
Look, I mean, it could be the Jets and somebody, they've improved dramatically. So that's a hard one for me to pick.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see where it is. Some comments that came through. Edwin is correct. Almost like an NBA team, but the Saints have scored almost 100 points in 2 games. Anybody but Dallas is always a fun one. Flyers Forever thinks that Detroit's going to win it all this year. Eileen mentioned not the Detroit that she watched today. Let's go Bucks coming through the top. Hold on a second.
Why do you disagree? Let me hear. I tend to agree.
All right. The reason why I disagree with the Lions, as much as everyone has been so high on the Lions, think about it. You were up on the Rams the way you were. Lost that game in overtime. Then this week you got beat the way you did get beat. I think the Lions have been exposed at this point. Jared Goff does not respond to pressure that well, and the NFC is filled with strong, strong defenses. The Rams got their best offensive lineman is now a Ram. So I think his name is Jonah Jackson. Or Jonah Johnson, Jonah something or other. So you've lost your best offensive lineman to keep pressure off of Goff. So as much as I would have agreed with you probably at the beginning of the year, after watching the Lions twice this year, I'm not as optimistic as I used to be.
Okay. And we have a "Come on Browns" comment that just came through from Heather. we love the Browns here on the show. They
don't have these. Remember I talked about, at least my team has these,
Yeah, it is definitely tough, especially like you said in the AFC. So if I had to say right now, it's super early on. I feel like for me, the Chiefs will find a way to get there. They're like the Houston Astros; they just don't go away. Those that are baseball fans. So I know it's the easy answer, but sometimes it's the thing. So as of now, I'm going to go Buffalo and Kansas City, with Buffalo finally moving on. And then in the NFC, I'm going to go from what I've seen, I'm going to go Tampa Bay and New Orleans. Now, Tampa Bay is not, there's going to be a lot of weeks where they're not even close to the top.
Yeah, they're a good choice.
Teams on the field. But Tampa Bay is a team that will do enough to win against the team that they're playing. They may not put out a 45 point game, but they're the kind of team that's just going to be pesky as long as the key parts. To see Chris Godwin today, 107 yards receiving. I think it was still in the second quarter. Can't believe I'm saying the words Bucks are going to go that far, but again, we're week 2. It's fine to talk about. So you just never know.
The Saints had not been performing at the level they had been, or I'd not seen what I saw in Minnesota. The Bucks would have been my third pick. They're a very complete team right now. And it's funny, their quarterback is what? An ex-Ram whose career was revitalized, by Sean McVay. he wouldn't be a Buck right now were it not for Sean McVay. So that's why Sean McVay was in my Mount Rushmore. This is a man who elevates people everywhere, whether they're elevated, they stay with the Rams, or they elevated, become a coach somewhere else, or become a player somewhere else.
Yep. And so what I want to do with our last 6 minutes here is I want a final question across the board. So Darren, final question for Delaun. And then any final questions from our listeners, if you want to get in there, because we've got 6 minutes left. So go ahead and throw them in there. But go ahead, Darren, your final thoughts. Final question.
I love these kind of questions I'm about to ask. You have 4 very diverse, wonderful helmets. Which one's your favorite and why?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Which one's my favorite? It's hard to pick because, the Super Bowl winning helmets would be easy to say. The helmet that we all know and love, especially with your history, would be the one that was here with the white and dark blue. This helmet is my favorite. It was the first one, the first time they won the Super Bowl. When the Rams were remarketing themselves or rebranding themselves, the horns were sacrosanct. So I'm glad that with this helmet, they kept the horns, but this helmet is iconic to me. In fact, I thought in a recent survey, this helmet was called the most beautiful helmet in the NFL. A lot of people may not know this. The Rams were the first team who painted logos on their helmet. That was done back in 1940, I believe 1948. And if people are wondering why I'm such a fan, my father played quarterback. Start when the person ahead of you is a future Hall of Famer, you're not going to start, but he did play. So if anyone's wondering why is Delaun such a Rams fan, that's exactly why. And I lost my father when I was 18. So being a Rams fan is a way that I can connect to my dad, if not in a small superficial way.
No, that's not a small way, my friend. That's a big way.
Yep, it's a big way. Just a couple other questions with a couple comments that came through. The Flyers forever. The Niners are surprising me so far, one of the younger teams in the league, and they're like a bad cold. No matter what you do, they will not go away. And then Robert says something interesting.
I like that
we
person.
Recently saw this Super Bowl, but if there was to be a Super Bowl of 2 0-0 teams or 0-2 teams, I could see that again being Cincinnati and Los Angeles being those 2 teams once again. If it's an 0-2 as we stand right now. Because as we all know, with the Bengals,
it could be Ravens, Rams too. The Ravens look really strong as well.
Yeah, and one of our fantastic listeners thinks Eileen is her name. My wife thinks I should take her to a Bucs game. So we shall see. I think they're mostly like season ticket holders that go to games, but you could probably find them somewhere.
Well, I've seen StubHub availability even for the playoffs when the Rams. Play them there. It was just bad scheduling for me. That's the only reason why I haven't been to Bucs games, either regular season or playoffs.
Yep, that is true. And so as we close this thing out, it was a lot of fun to talk. It's been a couple years since I've really been invested in NFL and finally starting to get that itch back. I am enjoying. I used to love fantasy sports, and don't get me wrong, it's a lot good. I think it was just so much to kind of put that together but it is nice to just be able to sit back, relax, and not go, oh no, my running back on one of my 5th fantasy team did bad today. It's that anxiety to kind of to not have to worry about. So, but it has been fun to kind of get back into it, watching games that even if they're not a fan of your team. I was sharing this with Darren. I want to know what the rule is on when it's okay to abandon ship and move on to another team. I'm not going to, but I'm going to keep pushing through as much as I can with that. So
when you don't have an emotional tie to the team, that's when you abandon ship and go elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So again, thanks everyone, all the listeners for jumping on. You guys are awesome.
Subscribe,
yes,
people. We got to get to 1,000 plus.
Yes, we got to get to 1,000 plus. 991. There we go. 9 more.
There we go. All right.
So just want to share as we sign off, just want to share what's coming up in the week ahead. On Thursday, this is going to be an awesome live show. We are going to be talking to @Theme Park Groupie. He is somebody who has over 67,000 subscribers. We're going to talk all things Universal Studios. So, Delaun, I'm sure you'll want to see that one. It's going to be a fun time.
I'm a pass holder. Yeah.
Yes, you are a pass holder. Yep. And then a week from tonight, we're going to actually talk something a little bit local here. We're going to actually have on some of the team of the Family Christmas Extravaganza. We want to share what that is all about as we're starting to get to that season. And then some other guests that are coming as well. We have Rudy Jara, who's going to be with us talking Tennessee Titans. And then we also have an Atomic Legacy Wrestling superstar. This will be the third that we've had on, who also works for the front office of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Wow. So he's not wrestling in the ring, he's working with the Jaguars. So a lot of exciting guests to come on the show. And some of our listeners, our very own listeners, Eileen will be on, I'm sure, talking the Bucks. We'll have Robert on with Cincinnati. So just please continue to subscribe or to watch along with us. It's been a great time. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Delaun. Thanks, everyone in the chat. Darren, and until next time, everyone, we'll see you around the ballpark.